Why is there death? Genesis. Why do we wear clothes? Genesis. Why did Jesus die on a cross?
I
Genesis.
don't think that ever comes up. I actually have I have an Adam and Eve debate coming up. I'm gonna bring that up. I don't think I've never.
Think about it. When they're doing observational science using the scientific method, they have to assume the laws of logic, they have to assume the laws of nature, they have to assume the uniformity of nature. I mean, think about it. If the universe came about by natural processes, where'd the laws of logic come from? Did they just pop into
know of? So like, how did that all get survive? Do you know what I mean? Like, think about that. How did they all survive? Like, he had cultures of all the different types of microbes, you know, and that was in the ark. Birds in the sky, over the livestock, and all the wild animals. So what I don't understand, if mankind is our image and we are 50% microbe, is God a microbe? This is I will never get an answer to this, and this is a legit. Ladies and gentlemen, let's look at a debate together. The infamous, okay, absolutely legendary debate of Bill Nye debating Ken Ham on, I think it's like Coca-Cola versus Pepsi. I think that's what they do. They really get into it. The real, or is it something probably evolution or creationism? I think that's what they're probably gonna do. Let's take a look, guys. Okay, fit check. What are you doing? Fit check. What are you doing, Ken Ham? What are you doing? He is wearing a suit jacket with suit pants, but they're matching. They're not matching. What and how that's illegal. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is definitely illegal. If you're wearing a blazer, like I'm wearing a blazer right now, and I have a mismatch in my pants, okay, I'm not wearing the same. That's okay, because I'm wearing a blazer. It's meant to do that. Suits, you're literally supposed to be matching. That's the whole point. Okay. So the idea that he's just up here with an oversized suit jacket and on top of that mismatched, is he dressing himself? What is wrong with this guy? I am wearing pants. Thanks, Hazel. Yes, I am wearing pants. But it looks like Ken Ham is not wearing pants, which is awful. Dude, Bill Nye looking really dapper. I love it. Really fitted. You could tell it's really fitted in his shoulders. He looks good. He's wearing his patent his tie, and you can tell that his tie is self-tie. How can you distinguish a nice blazer from a suit jacket? You really can't. Sometimes it goes to show just kind of like what the material is. That usually is the big thing. So yeah, that's the big thing.
We had a coin toss earlier to determine who would go first of these two men. The only thing missing was Joe Namath in a fur coat, but it went very well. Mr. Ham won the coin toss, and he opted to speak first. But first, let me tell you a little bit about both of these gentlemen. Mr. Nye's website describes him as a scientist, engineer, comedian, author, and inventor. Mr. Nye.
And also, see how his tie, how it doesn't look perfect? See how his tie doesn't look flat? Like his tie is asymmetrical. There's some volume to it. You know, that's how you wear a tie. All right. That's how you wear a tie. Do not wear one of those pre-tied bow ties. Please do not do that. You look like an absolute buffoonery. Like, just don't wear a bow tie. If you're gonna wear one of those super flat pre-tied bow ties, just don't wear a bow tie. You're not into it. You know what I mean? You're not about that life. Okay. So he's actually tying his own bow ties. He actually looks good tying it. Okay. That's a big thing.
As you may know, produced a number of award-winning TV shows, including the program he became so well known for, Bill Nye, the Science Guy.
Oh, is that him? Oh, I thought that Bill Nye.
On the Science Guy show, Mr. Nye won 7 National Emmy Awards for writing, performing, and producing. The show won 18 Emmys in 5 years. In
Wow.
between creating the shows, he wrote 5 kids' books about science, including his latest title, Bill Nye's Great Big Book of Tiny Germs. Bill Nye is the host of 3 television series. His program, The 100 Greatest Discoveries, airs on the Science Channel. The Eyes of Nye airs on PBS stations across the country. He frequently appears on interview programs to discuss a variety of science topics. Mr. Nye serves as executive director of the Planetary Society, the world's largest space interest group. He is a graduate of Cornell with a Bachelor's of Science degree in mechanical engineering.
He's an engineer, guys. Nobody's perfect. You know what I mean? He didn't. It's okay. I'm just kidding. I kid the engineers. I
Mr.
kid.
Ken Ham is the president and co-founder of Answers in Genesis, a Bible-defending
Oh, my
organization
God.
that upholds the authority of the scriptures from the very first verse. Mr. Ham is the man behind the popular high-tech creation museum where we're holding this debate. The museum has had 2
High-tech creation museum. What an oxymoron. How does that even make any sense, dude?
million visitors in 6 years and has attracted much of the world's media. The Answers in Genesis website is well trafficked with 2 million visitors alone last month. Mr. Ham is also a best-selling author, a much-in-demand speaker, and the host of a daily radio feature carried on 700-plus stations. This is his second public debate on evolution and creation. The first was at Harvard in the 1990s. Mr. Ham is a native of Australia. He earned a bachelor's degree in applied science with an emphasis in environmental biology from the Queensland Institute of Technology, as well as a diploma of education at the University of Queensland in Brisbane, Australia. And now, Mr. Ham, you opted to go first, so you will be first with your 5-minute opening statement.
God did it. Here's my opening statement, everyone. God did it. And you just got to have faith. We don't have any evidence for anything. God did it, and you just got to have faith. Boom, done. All right, we'll react. We'll just skip forward here.
Well, good evening.
Don't need to listen
I know
to this
that
part.
Not everyone watching this debate.
Debate topic: Is creation a viable model of origins in today's modern scientific era? Is creation a viable model? There is no model. There is nothing that they model. A model is something that's very, oh man, that's really triggering. Modeling has there has to be some type of mechanism of some type of way of showing that it happened, not just it happened. That's not a model, because you can't apply that model to other things because it's already happened and it's already frozen in time because God did it. So it literally can't be a model. Oh my God. I'm already crashing out.
Necessarily agree with what I have to say, but I'm an Aussie and live over here in America, and they tell me I have an accent, and so it doesn't matter what I say. Some people tell me we just like you here saying it. So I hope you enjoy me saying it anyway. Well, the debate topic is this: is creation a viable model of origins in today's modern scientific era? You know, when this was first announced on the internet, there were lots of statements like this one from the Richard Dawkins Foundation: scientists should not debate creationists, period. And this one from one of the discovery.com websites: should scientists debate creationists? You know, right here I believe there's a gross misrepresentation in our culture. We're seeing people in being indoctrinated to believe that creationists can't be scientists. I believe it's all a part of secularists hijacking the word science. I want you to meet a modern-day scientist who is a biblical creationist.
My name is Stuart Burgess. I'm a professor of engineering design at Bristol University in the UK. My name is Stuart Burgess. I'm a professor of engineering design at Bristol University in the UK. I have published over 130 scientific papers on the science of design in engineering and biological systems. From my research work, I have found that the scientific evidence fully supports creationism as the best explanation to origins. I've also designed major parts of spacecraft launched by ESA and NASA.
So here's a biblical creationist who's a scientist who's also an inventor. And I want young people to understand that. You know, the problem, I believe, is this. We need
Okay, let's look it up. Let's look him up. Let's look him up. Here we go. Stuart Burgess. Does anything that he has, none of his papers, the most cited papers, they don't include anything in regards to this. Look at this. There is no biblical reducing waste, repair, recondition, remanufacture, or recycle. What does that have to do with with his ideas of creationism? Current hydroelectric powertrain architectures, applying empirical design data to life cycle assessment and whole life cost analysis. Like what? Sorry, I mean, what is the creationism that he's saying, that he's citing in order to make that? Multimodal locomotion from animal to application. So like, what was that whole point? What was he talking about? Like, all his publications don't have anything to do what he was talking about. He is very highly cited, you know? I mean, he does have a lot of citations in him. That is cool. That is sweet. But not like he made it seem like he's literally publishing articles based off of creationism, and that's just not true. And he only has 24 articles, and six articles plus 24. So 30 peer-reviewed publications, which is still a lot. But the idea that he had over 100 or 300 articles, like peer-reviewed, that wasn't true. He's lying. The guy just straight up lied. Man, we're not off to a good start, ladies and gentlemen. We're not off to a good start. Oh, man.
Define terms correctly. We need to define creation, evolution in regard to origins, and we need to define science. And in this opening statement, I want to concentrate on dealing with the word science. I believe the word science has been hijacked by secularists. Now, what is science? Well, the origin of the word comes from the classical Latin scientia, which means to know. And if you look up a dictionary, it'll say science means state of knowing, knowledge. But there's different types of knowledge, and I believe this is where the confusion lies. There's experimental or observational science, as we call it. That's using the scientific method, observation, measurement, experiment, testing. That's what produces our technology, computers, spacecraft, jet planes, smoke detectors, looking at DNA, antibiotics, medicines and vaccines. You see, all scientists, whether creationists or evolutionists, actually have the same...
Wait, what? That was Craig Venner just came out of nowhere. What was that?
All scientists, whether creationists or evolutionists, actually...
Why would Craig Venner just get randomly put in? Craig Venner, one of the first researchers to sequence the human genome. Okay, what did that? That was just out of nowhere. What was that? What was that about?
...have the same observational or experimental science. And it doesn't matter whether you're a creationist or an evolutionist, you can be a great scientist. For instance, here's an atheist who is a great scientist, Craig Venter, one of the first researchers to sequence the human genome.
Okay.
Or Dr. Raymond Damadian. He is a man who invented the MRI scanner and revolutionized medicine. He's a biblical creationist. But I want us to also understand molecules to man evolution belief has nothing to do with developing technology. You see, when we're talking about origins, we're talking about the past. We're talking about our origins. We weren't there. You can't observe that, whether it's molecules to man evolution or whether it's a creation account. When you're talking about the past, we like to call that origins or historical science, knowledge concerning the past. Here at the Creation Museum, we make no apology about the fact that our origins or historical science actually is based upon the biblical account of origins. Now,
and that's the thing, that's the problem. There you go. I mean, like, science is indifferent of the conclusion, right? That's the big thing that people don't understand. Like, would Answers in Genesis ever publish something that didn't conclude that God was necessary or something? You know what I mean? Like, no. I mean, but any type of hypothesis can be falsified or proven false through empirical reasoning and data and inquiry, and that's the whole point of what science is. So having just like the conclusion in mind and working backwards, like, isn't science. That just isn't what it is.
now, when you research science textbooks being used in public schools, what we found is this. By and large, the origins or historical science is based upon man's ideas about the past, for instance, the ideas of Darwin. And our research has found that public schools...
Guys, it's really important. Nobody actually like any evolutionary like papers nowadays aren't citing like origin of species. Like, it's like, you know what I mean? Like nobody's actually doing that. Like it's something that happened, but all the evidence that people have for evolution is contemporary, right? We're building off of modern knowledge. We're not like going to origin of species in order to make the arguments, you know?
Textbooks are using the same word science for observational science and historical science. They arbitrarily define science as naturalism and outlaw the supernatural. They present molecules to man evolution as fact. They are imposing, I believe, the religion of naturalism or atheism on generations of students. You see, I assert that the word science has been hijacked by secularists in teaching evolution to force the religion of naturalism on generations of kids. Secular evolutionists teach that all life developed by natural processes from some primordial form, that man is just an evolved animal, which has great bearing on how we view life and death. For instance, as Bill states,
it's very hard to accept for many of us that when you die, it's over.
But you see, the Bible gives a totally different account of origins,
Oh.
of who we are, where we came from, the meaning of life and our future. That through one man, sin entered the world and death through sin, but that God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, whoever believes in him should not perish and have everlasting life. So, is creation a viable model?
Yeah, but like you just said and you did something that and that was you said something without proving anything or just right there. That's not scientific. That whole story that you somehow just came to the conclusion of without testing it and showing that it happened, like that's not science, bro. I mean, it's so weird that he's trying to wrap it and trying to couch it in like, I'm a real scientist. This is what real science is, and it can include the Bible. I'm totally okay if someone is like, hey, like Michelle said, like, I believe in God, and he just used science as or evolution to do so. That this is fine. I think that you can't. That's totally okay. If science or evolution is the tool that the creator used the world to make, then that make okay, whatever. But this whole idea of like actually the real science is this thing, I don't doesn't make any sense. Like he's trying to wrap creationism is also science, and it's not. Just isn't. Don't lie to people.
Of origins in today's modern scientific era. I say the creation-evolution debate is a conflict between two philosophical worldviews based on two different accounts of origins or science beliefs, and creation is the only viable model of historical science confirmed by observational science in today's modern scientific era.
Just not.
And that is time. I have the unenviable job of being the timekeeper here. So I'm like the referee in football that you don't like. But I will periodically, if either one of our debaters runs over on anything, I will stop them in the name of keeping it fair for all. Mr. Ham, thank you for your comments. Now it's Mr. Nye's turn for a 5-minute opening statement. Mr. Nye.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I very much appreciate you including me in your facility here. Now, looking around the room, I think I see just one bow tie. Is that right? Just one. I'm telling you, once you try. Oh, yes, two. That's great. I started wearing bow ties when I was young in high school. My father showed me, his father showed him. And there's a story associated with this, which I find remarkable. My grandfather was in the Rotary, and he attended a convention in Philadelphia. And even in those days, at the turn of the last century, people rented tuxedos. And the tuxedo came with a bow tie, untied bow tie. So he didn't know how to tie it, so wasn't sure what to do, but he just took a chance. He went to the hotel room next door, knocked on the door, excuse me, can you help me tie my tie? And the guy said, sure, lie down on the bed.
Okay.
So
Bro.
my grandfather, I mean, he wanted to have the tie on, wasn't sure what he was getting into, so he is said to have lain on the bed, and the guy tied a perfect bow tie knot, and quite reasonably, my grandfather said, thank you. Why'd I have to lie down on the bed? The guy said, I'm an undertaker. Really the only way I know how to do it. Now, that story was presented to me as a true story. It may or may not be. But it gives you something to think about, and it's certainly something to remember. So here tonight, we're going to have two stories, and we can compare Mr. Ham's story to the story from what I will call the outside, from mainstream science. The question tonight is, does Ken Ham's creation model hold up? Is it viable? So let me ask you all, what would you be doing if you weren't here tonight? That's right, you'd be home watching CSI. CSI Petersburg. Is that coming? I think it's coming. And on CSI, there is no distinction made between historical science and observational science. These are constructs unique to Mr. Ham. We don't normally have these anywhere in the world except here.
It's so true. Like, I think that that's a good point. In order to play the game that Ken Ham and other creationists want to play, they have to create these, it's called apologetics, the way that they can couch their beliefs in a specific way, in a specific manner that makes it viable, that makes it unique, that makes it make sense. And I think that's a good point. I mean, the idea that the only way for us to know anything is if we were there. I mean, how could we have any, like, why even have the police? Why even have murder investigations? You know what I mean? Like, well, are you there? Like, well, no, I'm not. I'm never going to be. So I agree, like, with this framing. It's good. Would you ever host debates? I mean, for me as the moderator, no. I think that'd be like really boring. I've tried to do that with like panels and stuff, and I don't like doing that. So, yeah, I guess I'm too narcissistic. I don't know. I have to be involved. I have to be involved.
Natural laws that applied in the past apply now. That's why they're natural laws. That's why we embrace them. That's how we made all these discoveries that enabled all this remarkable technology. So CSI is a fictional show, but it's based absolutely on real people doing real work. When you go to a crime scene and find evidence, you have clues about the past. And you trust those clues, and you embrace them, and you move forward to convict somebody. Now, Mr. Ham and his followers have this remarkable view of a worldwide flood that somehow influenced everything that we observe in nature. A 500-foot wooden boat, 8 zookeepers for 14,000 individual animals, every land plant in the world underwater for a full year. I ask us all, is that really reasonable? You'll hear a lot about the Grand Canyon, I imagine, also, which is a remarkable place, and it has fossils. And the fossils in the Grand Canyon are found in layers. There is not a single place in the Grand Canyon where the fossils of one type of animal cross over into the fossils of another. In other words, when there was a big flood on the earth, you would expect drowning animals to swim up to a higher level. Not any one of them did, not a single one. If you could find evidence of that, my friends, you could change the world. Now, I just want to remind us all, there are billions of people in the world who are deeply religious, who get enriched, who have a wonderful sense of community from their religion. They worship together, they eat together, they live in their communities and enjoy each other's company. Billions of people, but these same people do not embrace the extraordinary view that the earth is somehow only 6,000 years old. That is unique. And here's my concern. What keeps the United States ahead, what makes the United States a world leader, is our technology, our new ideas, our innovations. If we continue to eschew science, eschew the process, and try to divide science into observational science and historic science, we are not going to move forward. We will not embrace natural laws. We will not make discoveries. We will not invent and innovate and stay ahead. So if you ask me if Ken Ham's
Wow, guys, that'd be crazy. Can you imagine an entire administration not eschewing science and not respecting our place in the world and budget cutting it? This is in 2014, ladies and gentlemen. The before time, the BT. Wow. Yeah, the nice years of Obama. That was I remember those years. Oh man, that's wild. Yeah, but we didn't listen. We didn't listen, Bill. We didn't listen.
Creation model is viable. I say no. It is absolutely not viable. So stay with us over the next period, and you can compare my evidence to his. Thank you all very much.
All right. Very nice start by both of our debaters here. And now each one will offer a...
I mean, so like I kind of like I don't know. I know this is like the classical like way of combating creationism and all that kind of stuff. I just think it's really boring. I don't know. I think that you just like you're giving a story and you're like, my story is better than his story, even like in how he's framing this. But it's like we have to have more. We it's more than a story. Evolution is more than a story. It's a technology. It's how we understand the world. It's how we have predictive qualities too. So like it's just frustrating to me when I feel like his intro is kind of like downplaying the knowledge and the uh, technology that's capable from having predictive capabilities of science. Like the way that we understand the world allows us to have predictive qualities on that, and you don't get that with 6,000-year-old creationism. You just don't. There is no technology that's created from that. There's no new knowledge that's created from that. There's no ability to help us combat the measles outbreak right now. We don't have that. It's just it's a joke, man. Like I hate how people like argue these points. I think that it needs to be like way. I think that's why I have like my own style in doing this. Um, even yeah, but anyway, this is a little frustrating for me, but whatever, it's okay.
30-minute illustrated presentation to fully
30 minutes
their
each
case for us to consider. Mr. Ham, you're on.
Oh, wait. Oh my gosh. So that was the rough intro, and now we're gonna have a 30-minute intro. Oh my gosh. That's oh my God. 30 minutes each?
Well, the debate topic was, is creation a viable model of origins in today's modern scientific era? And I made this statement at the end of my opening statement. Creation is the only viable model of historical science confirmed by observational science in today's modern scientific era. And I said, what we need to be doing is actually defining our terms, and particularly three terms: science, creation, and evolution. Now, I discussed the meaning of the word science and what is meant by experimental or observational science briefly, and that both creationists and evolutionists can be great scientists, for instance. I mentioned Craig Venter.
He's going to rehash the same
he's
thing?
An atheist,
he just
and
went
he's
through
a great
this.
Scientist. He was one of the first researchers to sequence the human genome. I also mentioned Dr. Raymond Damadian.
He's just redoing his first 5-minute intro. What is this? This is awful.
Who actually invented the MRI scanner. I want you to meet a biblical creationist who is a scientist and inventor.
Hi, my name is Dr. Raymond Damadian. I am a young Earth creation scientist and believe that God created the world in 6 24-hour days, just as recorded in the book of Genesis. By God's grace and the devoted prayers of my godly mother-in-law, I invented the MRI scanner in 1969. The idea that scientists who believe the Earth is 6,000 years old cannot do real science is simply wrong.
Okay, bro, like nobody's saying that you can't do science. The problem is that you're not using the knowledge you have from young Earth creationism to impact your scientific discoveries. That's what we're saying. We're saying that you aren't using the Bible in your invention of the MRI scanner. You're not using Psalms 23 in order to, do this. Like you're using actual physical, natural principles that were developed with the scientific method, bro. That's the whole point. You're bifurcating your brain, which is fine in how you would have to result this. But just because you can bifurcate your brain into science and creationism doesn't mean that one confirms the other. Like, come on, man.
Just adamant about that. And actually, he revolutionized medicine. And he's a biblical creationist.
Oh, my God.
And I encourage children to follow people like that and make them their heroes. Let me introduce you to another biblical creation scientist.
My name is Danny Faulkner. I received my PhD in astronomy from Indiana University. For 26 and a half years, I was professor at the University of South Carolina, Lancaster, where I hold the rank of Distinguished Professor Emeritus. Upon my retirement from the university in January of 2013, I joined the research staff at Answers in Genesis. I'm a stellar astronomer. That means my primary interest is stars, but I'm particularly interested in the study of eclipsing binary stars. And I've published many articles in the astronomy literature.
What about non-binary stars? Huh? How about them? How about non-binary stars? No. Just saying. Just
Places
saying.
such as the Astrophysical Journal, the Astronomical Journal, and the Observatory. There is nothing in observational astronomy that contradicts a recent creation.
I also mentioned Dr. Stuart Burgess, professor of design, engineering design.
Bro, you can literally see wavelengths and observe wavelengths that are over 6,000 years old. Like you can literally see wavelengths. That's wild. That is so wild. I mean, he literally has just like a blind spot. Like imagine just being an astronomer that just doesn't actually use astronomy. Like I don't know how to say. That's wild.
Bristol University in England. Now, he invented, designed a double-action worm gear set for the 3 hinges.
And how is he not a flat earther? So wait, he's a flat earther that's sending things into space? I'm so confused. I'm so confused.
Of the robotic arm on a very expensive satellite. And if that had not worked, if that gear set had not worked, that whole satellite would have been useless. Yet Dr. Burgess is a biblical creationist who believes just as I believe. Now, think about this for a moment. Are scientists like Dr. Burgess who believe in creation just as I do, a small minority in the science?
He's not a flat earther, but I'm just curious, how is he not a flat earther? Like, how does he not believe in the firmament and all that kind of stuff? Like, how, like, but he believes that the Bible's wrong on that one? I'm just confused. I don't know.
Scientific world. But let's see what he says about scientists believing in creation.
I find that many of my colleagues in academia are sympathetic to the creationist viewpoint, including biologists. However, they are often afraid to speak out because of the criticisms they would get from the media and atheist lobby.
I agree, that's a real problem today. We need to have freedom to be able to speak on these topics. You know, I just want to say, by the way, that non-Christian scientists, I should say, non-Christian scientists are really borrowing from the Christian worldview anyway to carry out their experimental or observational science. Think about it. When they're doing observational science using the scientific method, they have to assume the laws of logic, they have to assume the laws of nature, they have to assume the uniformity of nature. I mean, think about it. If the universe came about by natural processes, where'd the laws of logic come from? Did they just pop into existence? Are we in a stage now where we only have half logic? So you see, I have a question.
But like, where did the laws of God come from then? I don't, like, where did those come from?
Question for Bill Nye. How do you account for the laws of logic and the laws of nature from a naturalistic worldview that excludes the existence of God? Now, in my opening statement, I also discussed a different type of science or knowledge, origins or historical science. See, again, there's a confusion here, there's a misunderstanding here. People, by and large, have not been taught to look at what you believe about the past as different to what you're observing in the present. You don't observe the past directly. Even when you think about the creation account, I mean, we can't observe God creating, we can't observe the creation of Adam and Eve. We admit that. We're willing to admit our beliefs about the past. But see, what you see in the present is very different. Even some public school textbooks, actually, well, they sort of acknowledge the difference between historical and observational science. Here is an earth science textbook.
Look at the timeline. It literally starts with vertebra. Like there's no, like, vertebrae like is where like the start of Animalia like starts. There's no microbial evolution. There's nothing here. It's just earth and then straight into like amphibians and fish, and it's like it's straight to things that with a vertebra. Like it's like it doesn't. Wow.
Difference between historical and observational science. Here is an earth science textbook that's used in public schools, and we read this. In contrast to physical geology, the aim of historical geology is to understand Earth's long history. And then they make the statement, historical geology, so we're talking about historical science, tries to establish a timeline of the vast number of physical and biological changes that have occurred in the past. We study physical geology before historical geology because we first must understand how Earth works before we try to unravel its past. In other words, we observe things in the present and then, okay, we're assuming that that's always happened in the past and we're going to try and figure out how this happened. See, there is a difference between what you observe and what happened in the past.
Yeah, but okay, but we can't observe God making the world in 6 days in the present. And God is literally sleeping in your own like thing. God is asleep or God is resting. So like, in what way could you can't even observe anything in today's world? That I'm so confused how he doesn't actually, like, what is he talking about here?
Let me illustrate it this way. If Bill Nye and I went to the Grand Canyon, we could agree that that's a Coconino sandstone in the Hermit Shale, and there's the boundary. They're sitting one on top of the other. We could agree on that. But do you know what we would disagree on? I mean, we could even analyse the minerals and agree on that. But we would disagree on how long it took to get there. But see, none of us saw the sandstone or the shale being laid down. There's a supposed 10 million year gap there, but I don't see a gap. But that might be different to what Bill Nye would see. But see, there's a difference between what you actually observe directly and then your interpretation in regard to the past. When I was at the Goddard Space Centre a number of years ago, I met creationists and evolutionists who were both working on the Hubble telescope. They agreed on how to build a Hubble telescope. You know what they disagreed on? Well, they disagreed on how to interpret
Earth is flat.
the data the telescope obtained in regard to the age of the universe. And, you know, we could go on and talk about lots of other similar sorts of things. For instance, I've heard Bill Nye talk about how a smoke detector works using the radioactive element americium. And you know what? I totally agree with him on that. We agree how it works. We agree how radioactivity enables that to work. But if you're then going to use radioactive elements and talk about the age of the Earth, you've got a problem because you weren't there. We've got to understand parent elements, daughter elements, and so on. We could agree whether you're creationist or evolution.
We can observe the decay happening right now. We can observe the decay right now and do experiments to show that it's happening right now.
On the technology to put the rover on Mars, but we're going to disagree on how to interpret the origin of Mars. I mean, there are some people that believe there was even a global flood on Mars and there's no liquid water on Mars. But
wait, wait. So the flood was intergalactic. Is that what the idea is? That there was a flood on Mars at the same time? That the God was flooding Earth and Mars? Why not Venus too at the same time? Just like a whole flood through the solar system, like just water. The whole universe was just all swollen up. Just like what? Earth was floating. Yeah, exactly. It's like Mars too. Mars, everything was just is a little the sun. Where was the sun? Like what was happening with the sun at the time? I was just like, what? Never heard of that.
We're going to disagree maybe on our interpretation of origins, and you can't prove either way because, not from an observational science perspective, because we've only got the present. Creationists and evolutionists both work on medicines and vaccines. You see, it doesn't matter whether you're creationist.
Look at that. Look at that. See, guys? See? You can do... There you go. There you go.
Or an evolutionist, all scientists have the same experimental or observational science. So I have a question for Bill Nye. Can you name one piece of technology that could only have been developed starting with a belief in molecules to man evolution? Now,
that could only have been the molecules to man evolution. I mean, I would argue that, like, let's see. Yeah, I mean, yes, like insulin. So, like insulin, for example. So the idea that DNA is inherently switchable and changeable from, you could run human DNA inside of bacteria, for example, and you can create human insulin inside of a bacteria, that has to have some shared common ancestry, like between them, right? There has to be. And by the way, you can look at that. Yeah, that's what I would argue. I mean, there has to be some way to link those together.
Developed starting with a belief in molecules to man evolution. Now, here's another important fact. Creationists and evolutionists all have the same evidence. Bill Nye and I have the same Grand Canyon. We don't disagree on that. We will have the same fish fossil. This is one from the Creation Museum. The same dinosaur skeletons, the same animals, the same humans, the same DNA, the same radioactive decay elements that we see. We have the same universe. Actually, we all have the same evidences.
Oh, look at that. This is pre-AI slop, dude. This is what a freaking, oh my God. What a, this is 2014. So this is pre-AI. Artists spent time doing that, man. That is sad. Evolution evidences. Oh my gosh.
It's not the evidences that are different. It's a battle over the same evidence in regard to how we interpret the past. And you know why that is? Because it's really a battle over worldviews and starting point.
But God, this is the thing. See how it's all historical in his mind. This is why it's so important. This is why my approach is so different, because it's just future perspectives. That I think that's the only way that we combat this. It's like, okay, using your creation of God's word, how do you use that in order to stop the next flu outbreak? Like, what's the next step using your model of how you understand the world? What can we use from that? I think that's the only way to actually combat this, to show like one is anti-science and one's not. And how dangerous the anti-science view of this is. You're overthinking that. Insulin, the creationist types don't care about that. They want to hear a point from presuppositional framework that justifies their worldview. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
It's a battle over philosophical worldviews and starting points, but the same evidence. Now, I admit my starting point is that God is the ultimate authority. But if someone doesn't accept that, then man has to be the ultimate authority. And that's really the difference when it comes down to it. You see, I've been emphasizing the difference between historical origin science, knowledge about the past when you weren't there, and we need to understand that we weren't there, or experimental or observational science, using your five senses in the present, the scientific method, what you can directly observe, test, repeat.
But you can't do any of that with any of the things that he is testing. That's what's so frustrating. He's like, these are the bounds that you have, but they apply nothing to my worldview. So we have no experimental or observational science whatsoever that we can do on creationism whatsoever. But these are your bounds, and these are your limitations.
There's a big difference between those two. And that's not what's being taught in our public schools, and that's why kids aren't being taught to think critically and correctly about the origins issue. But it's also important to understand, when talking about creation evolution, both involve historical science and observational science. You see, the role of observational science is this: it can be used to confirm or otherwise one's historical science based on one's starting point. Now, when you think about the debate topic and what I affirmed concerning creation, if our origins or historical science based on the Bible, the Bible's account of origins is true, then there should be predictions from this that we can test using observational science, and there are. For instance, based on the Bible, we'd expect to find evidence confirming an intelligence produced life. We'd expect to find evidence confirming after their kind. The Bible says God made kinds of animals and plants after their kind, implying each kind produces its own, not that one kind changes into another. You'd expect to find evidence confirming a global flood of Noah's day. Evidence confirming one race of humans, because we all go back to Adam and Eve. Biologically, that would mean there's one race. Evidence confirming the Tower of Babel, that God gave different languages. Evidence confirming a young universe. Now, I can't go through all of those, but a couple of them we'll
none of this
look at
makes...
briefly. after their kind, evidence confirming that. In the Creation Museum, we have a display featuring replicas, actually, of Darwin's finches. They're called Darwin's finches. Darwin collected finches from the Galapagos and took them back to...
Here we go. Although often viewed as an icon of evolution, Darwin's finches serve as a perfect model of variation within a created kind. In Genesis 1:21, we learn that God created, quote, every winged bird according to its kind. Scientists who studied created kinds, well, they're called baraminologists. What the moly? Have determined that kind is likely equivalent to the family level. All of Darwin's finches belong to the same family and therefore likely belong to the same created kind. I mean, I don't, yeah, it's Darwin's Finches is a way to show, and you can. It's really frustrating is that it shows, and people look at this and they're like, oh my god, they just see three birds, and they're like, oh my god, they look so similar. But like as a molecular biologist, I'm like thinking about, okay, can we look at the DNA, and we can look at like variations of the beak size specifically based off of gene alleles and allele frequencies over time, and we can actually absolutely look at the mechanism that caused this, and then you can see through other molecular clocks how they're different and how they created these phylogenetic trees and differentiation over time. So this idea of like, oh, I mean, they're just three birds, like what are you talking about? It's like, well, what is stopping these finches from continuing to evolve separately to be completely different in 100,000 years or 1,000,000 years into completely different looking birds? Nothing. So that's what's so frustrating.
England, and we see the different species, the different beak sizes here.
What's interesting, if creationists believe that dinosaurs evolved into avians, I could give more credibility to the Bible, which describes the order in which animals existed, but birds, avians being first. Yeah, I mean, basically birds are dinosaurs, which is pretty wild. But if they don't believe in evolution, they have to explain how birds could be before anything else. Yeah, exactly, man. It's very weird.
Here. And from the specimens that Darwin obtained in the Galapagos, he actually pondered these things and how do you explain this? And in his notes, actually, he came up with this diagram here, a tree. And he actually said, I think. So he was talking about different species, and maybe those species came from some common ancestor. Actually, when it comes to finches, we actually would agree as creationists that different finch species came from a common ancestor, but a finch is what they would have to come from. But you see, Darwin wasn't just thinking about species. Darwin had a much bigger picture in mind. When you look at The Origin of Species and read that book, you'll find he made this statement.
Oh my God.
From such low and intermediate form, both animals and plants may have been developed, and if we admit this, we must likewise admit that all organic beings which have ever lived on this earth may be descended from some one primordial form. So he had...
So are they thinking, when they quote this, is he thinking all organic beings? He didn't say the inorganic beings, which is God. They slam dunk. Darwin basically said that God exists, the supernatural beings. Jaboom! Like, what is this?
On this earth may be descended from some one primordial form. So he had in mind what we today know as an evolutionary tree of life, that all life has arisen from some primordial form. Now, when you consider the classification system, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species, we would say as creationists, and we have many creation scientists who've researched this, and for lots of reasons, I would say the kind in Genesis 1 really is more at the family level of classification. For instance, there's one dog kind, there's one cat kind, even though you have different genera, different species. That would mean, by the way, you didn't need anywhere near the number of animals on the ark as people think. You wouldn't need all the species of dogs, just two, not all the species of cats.
You wouldn't need all species of dogs. You would just need two. So there was evolution after the flood then. He just said it. He said that there was evolution after the flood. All of the created dog species evolved after the flood. That's what he was saying. That there's two dogs, and then now they're all related to one another. So you could I mean, if that was true, you just basically have a genetic bottleneck event that would be so severe, and you could basically sequence the genomes, and we would know exactly how many generations there were between those two and what these are. Like that, you would have so much genetic evidence that there was. This is like so incontrovertible. There would be so much evidence of this. Yeah, exactly, Divine. And extremely rapid evolution too. That's what they don't understand. Like, so not only are there like every single so from those two dogs came every single other dog, but then also those two dogs had every single virus that was specific to dogs. So like they had rabies basically. Like, so not only did those dogs exist, but they had worms, they had rabies, they had all these different canine parasites. They had to have them, guys. They had to have them. They didn't evolve afterwards, right? What? Like what, how else could they be? Dogs came from wolves, but that's not what he's saying. He's saying that the cats and the dogs were already there. So that's, I don't know. I don't know. Let's see, guys.
That's just two. And you see, based on the biblical account there in Genesis 1, creationists have drawn up what they believe is a creation.
Dude, Ruben, this is how did the fresh and saltwater fish survive, bro? And how did all the billions of species of microbes, like there's like 10 million species of algae that we know of. So like how did that all survive? Do you know what I mean? Like think about that. How did they all survive? Like he had cultures of all the different types of microbes, and that was in the ark. Like what? Like think about that. That's so wild, dude. Like come on.
Orchard. In other words, they're saying, look, there's great variation in the genetics of dogs and finches and so on. And so over time, particularly after Noah's flood, you'd expect if there were two dogs, for instance,
oh my God,
you could end up with different species of dogs because there's an incredible amount of variability in the genes of any creature. And so you'd expect these different species up here, but there's limits. Dogs will always be dogs, finches will always be finches. Now, as a creationist, I maintain that observational science actually confirms this model based on the Bible. For instance,
how surprising.
Dogs, okay, in a scientific paper dated January.
Bro, like this is dogs are such a bad example. Dogs are such a bad example because they're dogs, guys. Dogs are they're not from natural selection. They're from human selection. All the variation that you see between basically every single dog species is from human selection, right? They aren't from natural selection. So it's just, if anything, it actually shows how powerful little changes of DNA are in order to give such a big variation in phenotypic, elasticity. It shows how strong evolution can be and how strong selective pressures can be if you have those selection happening. It's incredible, but they don't see it like that, obviously.
2014, that's this year, scientists working at the University of California stated this.
That's me.
We provide several lines of evidence supporting a single origin for dogs and disfavoring alternative models in which dog lineages arise separately from geographically distinct wolf populations. And they put this diagram in the paper. By the way, that diagram is very, very similar to this.
Oh my God. I hate this. I hate that they're stealing this. That's so wild, man. That's so nefarious.
Diagram that creationists propose based upon the creation account in Genesis. In other words, you have a common dog ancestor that gives rise to the different species of dogs, and that's exactly what we're saying here. Now, in the Creation Museum, we actually show the finches here, and you can see the finches with their different beaks beside dog skulls, different species of dogs. By the way, there's more variation in the dog skulls here than there are in these finches. Yet the dogs, well, that's never used as an example of evolution, but the finches are, particularly in the public school textbooks. Students are taught, see the changes that are occurring here? And here's another problem that
Because the changes from the dog skull is from human selection. It's not from natural selection. What, like, what? It's not evolution with natural selection. It's evolution through human selection. It's really not that hard to think about, dude. Look at him having a chihuahua in with the wolf and show like wild, dude. Like this is so evil.
we've got. Not only has the word science been hijacked by secularists, I believe the word evolution has been hijacked by secularists. The word evolution has been hijacked using what I call a bait and switch. Let me explain to you. The word evolution is being used in public school textbooks, and we often see it in documentaries and so on. It's used for observable changes that we would agree with, and then used for unobservable changes, such as molecules to man.
Wait, what? Like, imagine after the discovery of DNA, not having DNA in your evolution answer. Like that's wild, dude. That is crazy. But again, like the word evolution is used for observable changes and then used for unobservable changes. What is he talking about? That's wild, dude. Like what?
Agree with, and then used for unobservable changes, such as molecules to man. Let me explain to you what's really going on, because I was a science teacher in the public schools, and I know what the students were taught, and I check the public school textbooks anyway to know what they're taught. See, students are taught today, look, there's all these different animals, plants, but they're all part of this great big tree of life that goes back to some primordial form. And look, we see changes in finches, changes in dogs, and so on. Now, we don't deny the changes. You see that. You see different species of finches, different species of dogs, but then they put it all together in this evolutionary tree, but that's what you don't observe. You don't observe that. That's belief there. That's their historical science that I would say was wrong. But you know what you do observe different species of dogs, different species of finches, but then there are limits, and you don't see one kind changing into another. Actually, we're told that if you teach creation in the public schools, that's teaching religion. If you teach evolution, that's science. And I'm going to say, wait a minute. Actually, the creation model here, based upon the Bible, observational science confirms this. This is what you observe. You don't observe this tree. Actually, it's the public school textbooks that are teaching a belief, imposing it on students, and they need to...
We do see it. We see it, and we observe this tree through phylogenetics and DNA sequencing. Like the evolutionary tree through morphology and zoology and all these other like sciences for other times. Think about that. That was all tested completely de novo, like with a completely new method through sequencing, right? Like DNA wasn't known about when we had these rough drafts of what the tree of life looked like. And then DNA comes in, and guess what? It just maps on like near perfectly to exactly what we thought. Like that is like, think about that. Like we actually missed some. There's actually more species than we even knew about, because there's called cryptic species that look identical, but they're actually genetically distinct. Think about killer whales and orcas, by the way. We tested this. We do test this. It has been tested. Hey, F1. Hey, Dr. Jace, how's it going? This is so frustrating.
be teaching them observational science to understand the reality of what's happening. Now, what we found is that public school textbooks present the evolutionary tree as science, but reject the creation orchard as religion.
Because it's not. It hasn't been tested. It hasn't been tested and confirmed. It hasn't been tested and confirmed through an independent observational study. Like, it just isn't. People are just like, the Bible says it is, and then that's why it is. That's why. It's not science. Like, that's fine that people believe it, and if it doesn't harm people, but it isn't science. Why would you teach in a science class?
The creation orchard. So public school textbooks are rejecting observational science and imposing a naturalistic religion on students. The word evolution has been hijacked using a bait and switch to indoctrinate students to accept evolutionary belief as observational science. Let me introduce you to another scientist, Richard Lenski, Michigan State University. He's a great scientist. He's known for culturing E. coli in the lab. And he found there were some E. coli that actually seemed to develop the ability to grow on substrate, on citrate in substrate. But Richard Lenski is here mentioned in this book, and it's called Evolution in the Lab. So the ability to grow on citrate is said to be evolution. And there are those that say, hey, this is against the creationists. For instance, Jerry Coyne from University of Chicago says, Lenski's experiment is also yet another poke in the eye for anti-evolutionists. He says the thing I like most is that it says you can get these complex traits evolving by a combination of unlikely events. But is it a poke in the eye for anti-evolutionists? Is it really seeing complex traits evolving? What does it mean that some of these bacteria are able to grow on citrate? Let me introduce you to another biblical creationist who is a scientist.
Hi, my name is Dr. Andrew Fabich. I got my PhD from the University of Oklahoma in microbiology. I teach at Liberty University, and I do research on E. coli in the intestine. I've published in secular journals from the American Society for Microbiology, including infection immunity and applied environmental microbiology, as well as several others. My work has been cited even the past year in the journals Nature, Science Translational Medicine, Public Library of Science, Public Library of Science Genetics. It's cited regularly in those journals. And while I was taught nothing but evolution, I don't accept that position, and I do my research from a creation perspective. When I look at the evidence that people cite of E. coli supposedly evolving over 30 years, over 30,000 generations in the lab, and people say that it is now able to grow on citrate. I don't deny that it grows on citrate, but it's not any kind of new information. The information's already there, and it's just a switch that gets turned on and off, and that's what they reported in there. There's nothing new.
It was the ability for it to grow aerobically literally is something new. That literally is that is new, dude. I'm sorry, you're wrong. So again, these guys always say like, "Oh man, well, I'm a baller. I'm using my creationism, and I'm publishing anyway." This is one of these guys. His thing, Andrew Fabich, right there. None of this is citing the Bible or citing citing creationism whatsoever. Again, so like in order to actually make their scientific claims, they aren't actually respiration of Escherichia coli and mouse intestine. They're using, you know what I mean? If he doesn't believe that that's how it is, then give us a better explanation through your belief system then. Like these are his publications. He doesn't have a Google Scholar thing, by the way. Very, very weird. I don't know how that's. I'm sorry if you're getting like published in Nature and Science and you don't have a Google Scholar profile, bro. Doubt. I'm sorry. I very much doubt you, bro. I'm sorry. Like, come on, bro. Like, come on, man. Like, by the way, like here's me. Like, you put your name, and it's like, there's this guy. Look at that. There it is. Cited by 1100. Right? There it is. So people like the idea that it's just these guys. The fact that he doesn't have this is very weird. It's very weird. But there it is. There it is, I guess. I don't know. Whatever.
See, students need to be told what's really going on here. Certainly.
How do you know he doesn't have one? It's basically you can just tell, man. You can just tell. So you just go to his his thing right here, when you go to his like right here, you can't click his link. There, you can't click his you can't click the name right here. So it's very weird. So again, like he's publishing an ASM, which is cool. I mean, ASM. He's not. He only has 3 peer-reviewed publications that are first author. Like, which is like, I mean, that's cool. I mean, that's not nothing, you know. But I mean, he's not being. I mean, he's basically he's getting claims. He's claiming that his stuff is being cited by other. He's basically saying like, I didn't publish in Nature, but someone who published in Nature cited my work, which is kind of a weird. I mean, okay, that's cool. But none of his publications show anything that's like, oh my God, he knows so much more than we thought. You know, it's I don't know, dude. He's not like an impressive research scientist or anything. Not like I am either. I'm not a incredibly distinct or impressive research scientist either. But thank you, Bobby. So I don't know, man.
There's change, but it's not change necessary for molecules to man. Now, we could look at other predictions. What about evidence confirming one race? Well, when we look at the human population, we see lots of differences. But based on Darwin's ideas of human evolution as presented in The Descent of Man, I mean, Darwin did teach in The Descent of Man there are lower races and higher races. Would you believe that back in the 1900s, one of the most popular biology textbooks used in the public schools in America taught this? At the present time, there exist upon Earth 5 races, or varieties of man, and finally the highest type of all, the Caucasians, represented by the civilized white inhabitants of Europe and America. Can you imagine if that was in the public schools today? And yet, that's what was taught, but it was based on Darwin's ideas that are wrong. You have a wrong foundation. You're going to have a wrong worldview. Now, had they started from the Bible and from the creation account in the Bible, what does it teach?
Is he publishing under a different name? I don't know. I mean, maybe he would have to be. I don't think so. Yeah, that's the only thing I think of. Yeah, exactly. The ability to grow on citrate is evidence of its evolving. The only thing that he might be thinking about is the aerobic metabolism of citrate was it as an insertion inside of another promoter. So that's what they're trying to say. It's evidence of a genomic shuffling event. It's not of, an actual, de novo mutation over time event, which is ridiculous, by the way. That's how evolution works, dude. The idea that you have genome recombination that leads to new combinations of, open reading frames and coding sequences to create new types of proteins, and like that's the whole idea. Hello, guys. That's how evolution works, guys. That's what it is. That's why genetic diversity is very important. That's why it's crucial. Hello. Exactly, Dr. Jace. Yeah, exactly. Genomic recombination is evolution. Ask viruses. Tell viruses that genomic recombination isn't important. Tell the Omicron SARS-CoV-2 variant that it doesn't mean anything. It's like, bro, exactly. God, it's just these people aren't serious, man. They're not serious. They're just lying. And this idea of biblical view of of what this is, Adam and Eve. Like, think about this. I mean, based, by the way, Adam and Eve, literally a trans woman. I mean, I think we don't give them enough credit that like men are, like, all of humans are I don't know, based. Eve is a trans woman. I appreciate that. You know what I mean? We should make more of a thing about that. Thank you. But very weird. Adam and Eve, and then sons and daughters. Where are those sons and daughters coming from, y'all? What's going on there? It's like, and then Noah and the sons. Again, like, bro, if this was true, you would have like the genetics. You would be so, it would be so apparent, you guys. Like these type of genetic bottlenecks events would be so apparent. Like you would know, you would absolutely know from the genomes.
Well, we're all descendants of Adam and Eve. We go through the Tower of Babel, different languages, so different people groups formed.
It's right, Hazel. Where did the blonde chick come from? What is that? Yeah, where'd that come from? Oh my gosh.
Distinct characteristics, but we'd say, you know what, that means there's biologically only one race of humans. Well, I mentioned Dr. Venter before, and he was a researcher with the Human Genome Project, and you'll remember in the year 2000, this was headline news, and what we read was this: they had put together a draft of the entire sequence of the human genome and unanimously declared there is only one race, the human race. Wow, who would have guessed? But you see, there we have observational science confirming the creation account, not confirming at all Darwin's ideas. Now, there's much more that could be said on each of these topics. Obviously, you can't do that in a short time like this, and you could do a lot more research. I suggest you visit our website at Answers and
Evidence, predictions based on the Bible. Okay, evidence confirming an intelligence-produced life. How? But wait. That's just Adam and Eve, though. So wouldn't there be intelligence produced? Like, isn't there other things that are intelligence other than humans too? So wouldn't they have been created outside of Adam and Eve? Evidence confirming after their kind. Again, we have way more evidence than that. I don't know, Dr. Jace. I don't have any keyword filters on, so I don't know. Evidence confirming a global flood. I mean, that is so laughable, man. I mean, Sarah, I'm sorry, but if people actually believe in a global flood, that is like some real brain rot. I'm sorry. Evidence confirming one race. Okay. Evidence confirming the Tower of Babel. I don't even know what the Tower of Babel is, to be honest with you. Oh my gosh. What's the evidence? Yes, exactly. What is the evidence? Right? What is the evidence?
Genesis for a lot more information. So, the debate topic, is creation a viable model of origins in today's scientific era? I said we need to define the terms, and particularly the term science and the term evolution, and I believe we need to understand how they're being used to impose an anti-God religion on generations of unsuspecting students.
I hate this too, my dude. I hate the idea that they use anti-God religion here. The idea that like religious people are calling science a religion, it really blows my mind, because it's like they're projecting their insecurities, right? They always talk about that, like, oh, you just have faith. You know, all you're doing is you just have faith. And you're like, wait, I thought faith was a virtue. I thought it was a good thing. I thought religion was a good thing and all of a sudden now it's not. And it's like, oh yeah, it's because a religious person is literally taking their own insecurities and like pushing it on other people. It's just ridiculous, bro. Like, I'm sorry, like it but it's not a religion, because we don't require anything supernatural in order to explain what we're talking about. It just isn't a religion. I'm sorry. It's so frustrating that they throw this at science as if it's a bad thing, when they espouse the same rhetoric. They espouse the same views.
Used to impose an anti-God religion on generations of unsuspecting students. You see, I keep emphasizing we do need to understand the difference between experimental or observational science and historical science. And you know what? The secularists don't like me doing this, because they don't want to admit that there's a belief aspect to what they're saying. And there is, and they can't get away from it. Let me illustrate this with a statement from Bill Nye.
You can show the Earth is not flat. You can show the Earth is not 10,000 years old.
By the way, I agree. You can show the Earth is not flat. There's a video from the Galileo spacecraft showing the Earth, and speeded up, of course, but spinning. You can see it's a sphere.
Oh, look at that guy.
You can observe that. You can't observe the age of the Earth. You don't.
Wait, how does he, so then, man, they're just so, it's God, it's such a cheat code just to be able to like, yeah, I believe in some of the Bible, but not the other part of the Bible. Like what about the firmament, man? What about all that kind of stuff? What about it's just wild.
See that. You see, again, I emphasize there's a big difference between historical science, talking about the past, and observational science, talking about the present. And I believe what's happening is this, that students are being indoctrinated by the confusion of terms. The hijacking of the word science and the hijacking of the word evolution.
Bro, there is not a firmament, Ruben. What the fuck, dude? Come on. Jesus Christ, Ruben. Do not, no. There is not a firmament. There is no flat earth, bro. Jesus Christ.
In a bait
Ruben.
and switch. Let me illustrate further with this video clip, because here I assert that Bill Nye is equating observational science with historical science, and I also say it's not a mystery when you understand the difference.
Apparently, people with these deeply held religious beliefs, they embrace that whole literal interpretation of the Bible as written in English as a worldview, and at the same time, they accept aspirin, antibiotic drugs, airplanes, but they're able to hold these two worldviews. And this is a mystery.
Actually, I suggest to you it's not a mystery. You see, when I'm talking about antibiotics, aspirin, smoke detectors, jet planes, that's Ken Ham, the observational science bloke.
Oh my God.
I'm an Australian. We call guys blokes, okay? But when you're talking about creation and thousands of years or the age of the earth, that's Ken Ham, the historical science bloke. I'm willing to admit that. Now,
Dude, this this is actually amazing, dude. We can't even tell them about this. You know what I mean? We can't tell them about parthenogenesis. Because it is so funny that yes, it is. We can't say that. Parthenogenesis is basically the idea that you can, and it happens, and it does happen in nature. Basically, an organism can be so stressed that it copies its X chromosome a second time and basically clonally propagates. So there's actually like all female lizards, for example, and we've actually seen parthenogenesis in sharks. So it actually is possible. So it is wild. Bro, it's holding our oxygen in space. What's keeping it within the atmosphere? Gravity, dude. Gravity. What are you talking about? What's keeping the oxygen in our atmosphere? Bro, there's no ice wall in the sky, dude. Come on, dude. Come on, bro.
when Bill Nye's talking about aspirin, antibiotics, jet planes, smoke detectors, he does a great job at that. I used to enjoy watching him on TV too. That's Bill Nye, the observational science guy. But when he's talking about evolution of millions of years, I'm challenging him that that's Bill Nye, the historical science guy, and I challenge the evolutionists to admit the belief aspects of their particular worldview. Now, at the Creation Museum, we're only too willing to admit our beliefs based upon the Bible, but we also teach people the difference between beliefs and what one can actually observe and experiment with in the present. I believe we're teaching people to think critically and to think in the right terms about science. I believe it's the creationists that should be educating the kids out there, because we're teaching them the right way to think. You know, we admit our origins of historical science is based upon the Bible, but I'm just challenging evolutionists to admit the belief aspects of evolution and be upfront about the difference here. As I said, I'm only too willing to admit my historical science based on the Bible. And let me further go on and define the term creation as we use it. By creation, we mean, here at Answers in Genesis and the Creation Museum, we mean the account based on the Bible. Yes, I take Genesis as literal history, as Jesus did. And here at the Creation Museum, we walk people through that history. We walk them through creation, a perfect creation. God made Adam and Eve, land animal kind, sea creatures, and so on. And then
not algae,
sin and death entered
not algae, not microbes, not bacteria, not yeast, nothing like that.
World. So there was no death before sin. That
that's convenient. That's nice. Nothing
means, how can you have billions of dead things before man sinned? And then the catastrophe of Noah's flood.
I love how like the first like 20 minutes of this thing was all just like you gotta have strict evidence in order to have every claim. You gotta make sure that you're there. You gotta make sure everything is there. Your observation versus thing, and then all of a sudden we're just like, yeah, and then like everything lived forever until people were mad at each other, and God was mad because the thing happened, and then guess what? Now we have this whole so yeah, actually, there's a lot of things that we didn't know, like, what? Like, bro, what are you talking about? What happened to the whole observational thing? Like, what is this? Like, there's no, okay, so we're just no evidence now. We're in the no evidence claims portion of the atmosphere, the presentation now. Like, what?
If there was a global flood, you'd expect to find billions of dead things buried in rock layers laid down by water all over the earth. Had to say that because a lot of our supporters would want me to. And
what's his slam dunk evidence of the flood being real?
All over the earth. Had to say global flood, you'd expect to find billions of dead things buried in rock layers laid down by water all over the earth.
Wow. That's it, guys. That's it. If there was a flood, you would expect buried things. Checkmate. Gotcha.
Had to say that because a lot of our supporters would want me to. And what do you find? Billions of dead things buried in rock layers laid down by water all over the earth.
Checkmate.
Confusion, the Tower of Babel. God gave different languages, so you get different people groups. So this is the geological, astronomical, anthropological, biological history as recorded in the Bible. So this is concerning what happened in the past that explains the present. And then, of course, that God's Son stepped into history to be Jesus Christ, the God-man, to die on the cross, be raised from the dead. And one day it's going.
Well, what happened to the observational thing again? Sorry. Excuse me. I was just taking notes. I really liked what you were saying about the observational aspect of having to confirm everything. I just wanted to make sure we're still on that same. Was that you? Did I have a stroke? Are we still on the same presentation? I'm so confused why you're just jumping around now. Now we're just listing like wishes as opposed to like where I wanted to see one more time. Could you rewind to the original? Could the other Ken Ham come back that was talking about observational science? And then how did that? Oh man, I'm so confused.
Going to be a new heavens and a new earth to come. And, not only is this an understanding of history to explain the geology, biology, astronomy, and so on.
I love that. Look at this. Christ, cross. Christ, cross. Boom. 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 Consummation. What was the consummation? What happened to Jesus when he died on the cross? What the fuck? Guys, what happened to Jesus after he died on the cross? What was the consummation? What's going on there? That's gross, dude. That's gross. That's so gross, man. Leave him alone. Leave the body alone, bro. That is so ugh.
Is this an understanding of history to explain the geology, biology, astronomy, and so on to connect the present to the past, but it's also a foundation for our whole worldview. For instance, in Matthew 19, when Jesus was asked about marriage, he said, "Have you not read? He which made the beginning made them male and female," and said for this cause...
Excuse me. That's trans female. Okay? That's not... There aren't any females. We have trans women. Excuse me. Okay? That was my rib. Okay? That was male DNA. And we have trans women. Okay? Don't reject their reality.
"Shall a man leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and they'll be one flesh." He quoted from Genesis as literal history, Genesis 1 and 2. God invented marriage, by the way. That's where marriage comes from. And it's to be a man and a woman.
Like just imagine you're an albatross and you've been monogamous for like millennia, and like other organisms have like monogamy and stuff, and then all of a sudden this random organism comes up and they're like, I actually invented staying with the same mating partner for life. I just want to let you know. It's like albatross is like, what? What did you say? What did you invent?
And not only marriage, ultimately, every single biblical doctrine of theology, directly or indirectly, is founded in Genesis. Why is there sin in the world?
Bro, how many miscarriages did she have? That's true. That's actually a really good question. How many miscarriages did she have? Yeah, because because she with parthenogenesis, like if the X, well, if she has an XY chromosome, exactly. Then could she have had YY miscarriages? That's a really good point. Damn. This is actually biblical science, genetics right here, Dr. Jace. I don't think they've ever thought about this before. This is actually a groundbreaking discovery in genetics, Adam and Eve genetics.
Genesis. Why is there death? Genesis. Why do we wear clothes? Genesis. Why did Jesus die on a cross?
I
Genesis.
don't think that ever comes up. I actually have an Adam and Eve debate coming up. I'm gonna bring that up. I don't think I've never heard anyone even talk about this, the genetics of Adam and Eve. So I think that's like because there is, yeah, it would have to be an XY genome from the rib. So, and they cloned it into a person. Like what happens? It has to be Eve has to be XY. She has to be based, dude. Adam base.
It's a very important book. It's foundational to all Christian doctrine. And you see,
what is a woman? I love the idea of God asking Adam, like, what is a woman? And he's like, I don't know. I don't know.
we look at that, what I call the
He's like, God, women are a spectrum. Like I don't know. I don't know.
7 seas of history that we walk people through here at the museum. Think about how it all connects together. A perfect creation, it'll be perfect again in the future. Sin and death entered the world.
Oh.
That's why God's Son died on the cross, and to conquer death and offer a free gift of salvation. The flood of Noah's day, a reminder that the flood was a judgment because of man's wickedness, but at the same time a message of God's grace and salvation, as Noah and his family had to go through a door to be saved, so we need to go through a door to be saved. Jesus Christ said, I am the door, by me if any man enter in, he'll be saved.
Oh my God. It's just like these pre-rehearsed lines that they go into. It's like a trance that it just come, blah, blah, blah. It just like comes out, and they're just, and they don't even, he's not even engaged with the topic or really looking at anything. He's just spewing just like this word vomit that he's heard 1,000 times, and it's just, and everyone's just like nodding along, yes, yes, yes. And you're like, can we just slow down?
We make no apology about the fact that what we're on about is this. If you confess with your mouth the Lord Jesus and believe in your heart God has raised him from the dead, you'll be saved. Now,
confess with your mouth. Confess with your mouth, all right? Oh my God. Genesis, here we go. We're reading the Bible. We're reading the Bible, y'all. How many science streams are actually reading the Bible? Okay? Who's doing that? Nobody. Genesis 1:26, international version, New International Version, okay? Not King James. Then God said, and I quote, let us make mankind in our image. Yeah, what let us? Isn't he making mankind? Let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, over the livestock and all the wild animals. So what I don't understand, if mankind is our image and we are 50% microbe, is God a microbe? This is I will never get an answer to this, and this is a legitimate question. By cell count, God does God have a microbiome? I'm serious. What is God's microbiome looking like? Nobody's answered that. Nobody has answered that. I think that God is a bacteria. If God, it would actually make sense that God would be a bacteria. Genuinely, I think that because then like God creates his son, which is like his carrier, which is a human, but but God's a bacteria. So like he makes his son the carrier of his offspring, which is a bacteria in his gut. Nobody thinks about this, but this is the thing. I'm telling you guys, this God's a microbe. Over the livestock and the wild animals, over the creatures. So God created the mankind in his own image with bacteria. In the image of God, he created them, the microbes. Male and female, he created them. I'm telling you, I think God's a bacteria, guys. I think that makes sense. I'm not trolling. I am not trolling.
As soon as I say that, people say, see, if you allow creation in schools, for instance, if you allow students to even hear about it, this is religion. You know, let me illustrate this, talking about a recent battle in Texas over textbooks in the public school. A newspaper report said this: textbook and classroom curriculum battles have long ranged in Texas, pitting creationists, those who see God's hand in the creation of the universe, against academics. Stop right there. Notice, creationists, academics. Creationists can't be academics. Creationists can't be scientists. See, it's the way things are worded out there. It's an
fair. It's almost like the persecution complex starts at who their martyr is. I don't know. Just noticing a trend, guys.
Nation that's going on, who worry about religious and political ideology trumping scientific fact. Wait a minute, what do they mean by science? You're talking about what you observe, or you're talking about your beliefs about the past? Now, Kathy Miller is the president of the Texas Freedom Network, and she's vocally spoken out. She's spoken out about this textbook battle there in Texas. And the mission statement of the organisation she's president of says, the Texas Freedom Network advances a mainstream agenda of religious freedom and individual liberties to counter the religious right. Religious freedom, individual liberties. And then she makes this statement.
Yeah.
Science education, what does she mean by science, should be based on mainstream science education, not on personal ideological beliefs of unqualified reviewers. Wait a minute, they want religious liberty and not personal ideological beliefs? I assert this. Public school textbooks are using the same word science for observational and historical science. They arbitrarily define science as naturalism and outlaw the supernatural. They present molecules to man evolution.
And outlaw the supernatural, yes, because we can't scientifically prove that the supernatural exists, dude. Like, what are you doing? It's so wild. Yes, you can't prove the supernatural through science. So why would the supernatural be a part of the scientific curriculum? Yes. And why we don't teach about like unicorns. We don't teach about like leprechauns. What is this? What is this?
Fact, and they're imposing the religion of naturalism on generations of students. They're imposing their ideology on the students, that everything's explained by natural processes. That is a religion. What does she mean by religious liberty? They tolerate their religion.
Oh my God.
See, the battle is really about authority. It's more than just science or evolution or creation. It's about who is the authority in this world, man or God. If you start with naturalism, then what about morals? Who decides right and wrong? Well, it's subjective. Marriage, well, whatever you want it to be. Get rid of old people. I mean, why not? I mean, they're just animals. They're costing us a lot of money. Abortion, get rid of spare cats, get rid of spare kids.
It's so crazy to me. As soon as morals are like in question in their mind, they're like, you can't first thing they're like, you can't stop me. You can't stop me from loving whoever I want to love. Like, what are you? Whoa, dude, chill, chill. It's kind of like a self own. You know what I mean? They're like as soon as I can. And we're like, whoa, whoa, chill, dude, chill. Yeah, exactly, chill, daddy. Whoa, like, God. Like it's the man is they're talking about the sheep a little bit too much over there. You know what I mean? They're getting real feisty. They're getting real excited over there. You know, God is my shepherd. You know what I mean? It's like, whoa, dude, chill, chill.
moral animals. But if you start from God's word, there are moral absolutes. God decides right and
Yeah.
wrong. Marriage, one
Of
man and
course,
one
yeah.
woman. Sanctity of life. We care for all people. They're made in the image of God.
Moral absolutes. Famously, people who are religious have never done a wrong thing. Famously, yeah,
Life begins at fertilization, so abortion is killing a human being. We
wrong, completely wrong.
do see the collapse of Christian morality in our culture and increasing moral relativism because generations of kids have
This is what's so frustrating. Like this, they're talking about the collapse of society, and they're talking about here like these insane, these insane conclusions that are like you always debate these people, and all of a sudden they're talking about Mao and Stalin and all these type of things. But like in my debates, I can't even talk about vaccines and virological evolution. You know what I mean? I can't even bring those up. Those are too taboo. But I have to explain and defend like the works of Mao or some nonsense like that. And they always go so off the rails. But the problem is that their way of understanding the world is so enshrined into our culture and our way of thinking that people just like, oh yeah, of course they're gonna talk about this. Yeah, oh yeah, of course, this makes sense. And you're like, is it
being
fair?
taught the religion of naturalism and that the Bible can't be trusted. And so again, I say, creation is the only viable model of historical science confirmed by observational science in today's modern scientific era. You know what? I'm a science teacher. I want to see kids taught science. I love science. I want to see more Dr. Nemadians in the world. You know, if we teach them the whole universe is a result of natural processes and not designed by a creator God, they might be looking in the wrong places or have the wrong idea when they're looking at the creation in regard to how you develop technology, because if they look on it as just random processes, that could totally influence the way they think. If they understand it was a perfect world marred by sin, that could have a great effect on how they then look for overcoming diseases and problems in the world. I want children to be taught the right foundation, that there's a God who created them, who loves them, who died on the cross for them, and that they're special. They're made in the image of God.
As a bacteria. Oh my gosh, is a bacteria.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Ham. We can applaud Mr. Ham's presentation.
But this is like, I mean, it does suck. Like the problem is that like as scientists, we do have to like step back, and people are so like hands off. Like science is like, oh, we can't be 100% sure that this is happening. We can't be, they'd be very, very meek positions on these issues. So it allows all this space to, give to these religious people. And guess what now? Like they fill it up. They fill the gaps in our like moral absence. You know what I mean? And he goes into all of this nonsense in regards to crime and murder and all this nonsense when we're literally talking about biological evolution. Like you can't you can't win like that. I don't, as science communicators, we have to think about how we can be stronger in our words, but then also be scientific when we're talking about that. You know what I mean? Like how can we show that like the evidence for evolution is pretty much absolute? Like we see it everywhere. It's a tool that we use. It's within our grasp and our hands. That's that real, but versus Bill Nye in his intro, he's like, it's a story, and evolution is a story that we tell. And you're like, bro, like you got to be stronger than that. I really, really hope that like Bill Nye is a little bit more like chest out in this 30-minute presentation. Oh my God. I like the Mormon afterlife where I get my own planet. Yes, as a man, you get your own planet and you have God powers on top of that. So people, that's where I would go. Mormonism is my favorite religion for that reason. If I was going to be religious, so you definitely want to be. You definitely want to be Mormon. For sure.
And it did occur to me when you had my old friend Larry King up there, you could have just asked him. He's been around a long time, and he's a smart guy. He could probably answer for all of us. Now, let's all be attentive to Mr. Nye as he gives us his 30-minute presentation.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Ham, I learned something. Thank you. But let's take it back around.
Bill.
On to the question at hand. Does Ken Ham's creation model
Sorry, Dr. Jace. Yeah, TikTok's filtering. I mean, sorry, bro. I don't know why. I think also there's we're on YouTube too, if you wanted to hang out there. But whatever you want to do, man. I'm sorry about that. I don't know. I hate the censorship on TikTok.
hold up? Is it viable? So for me, of course, well, take a look. We're here in Kentucky on layer upon layer upon layer of limestone. I stopped at the side of the road today and picked up just a piece of limestone that has a fossil right there. Now, in these many, many layers, in this vicinity of Kentucky, there are coral animals, fossil, zooxanthellae. And when you look at it closely, you can see that they live their entire lives. They lived typically 20 years, sometimes.
Dude, so zooxanthellae are really cool. Endosymbiotic zooxanthellae are actually the animals that live inside of coral reefs. So that, like, when coral bleaching happens, endosymbiotic inside of the coral zooxanthellae leave. So that's what coral bleaching is. So obviously zooxanthellae have been around for a really long time and they fossilize, and that's one of the things we have evidence of. So that's what he's talking about. But yeah, zooxanthellae really cool. And it's a cool word too, that to spelling. It's like ZOOXANTH Zan THELLAE or something like that. It's a cool word.
Times more than that, if the water conditions are correct. And so we are standing on millions of layers of ancient life. How could those animals have lived their entire life and formed these layers in just 4,000 years? There isn't enough time since Mr. Ham's flood for this limestone that we're standing on to have come into existence.
Holy shit, dude. God damn it, Bill. Bro, like, there's literally freeze thaw layers in Antarctica that you can count the winters on, okay? When there's a winter, it freezes, there's a line, okay? It's like tree rings, but it's in ice cores, okay? And you can just count. We literally have ice core samples that you can count 1 to 800,000 on. Like, you can just count the lines and it goes from 1 to 800,000 on it. So we literally have like a number line that in the world that goes to 800,000 and it's a yearly number line. Like, holy moly. Like you're killing me, Bill. You're killing me, brother.
My scientific colleagues go to places like Greenland, the Arctic, they go to Antarctica.
Ice core laboratory, there you go.
Into the ice with hollow drill bits. It's not that extraordinary. Many of you have probably done it yourselves, drilling other things, hole saws to put locks in doors, for example. And we pull out long cylinders of ice, long ice rods. And these are made of snow. And by a long tradition, it's called snow ice. And snow ice forms over the winter as snowflakes fall and are crushed down by subsequent layers. They're crushed together and trapping the little bubbles. And the little bubbles must needs be ancient atmosphere. There's nobody running around with a hypodermic needle squirting ancient atmosphere into the bubbles. And we find...
I mean, it's more than that. It's like, it's the... How ice forms is a hexagonal shape, right? It's because of the H2O molecule and the little, like it basically has a hexagonal 3D shape that it creates. And at the center of it is a little pocket, a little bubble of atmosphere. That's how it floats. That's how ice floats on water, which is crazy if you think about it. It actually is really interesting because most solids are gonna sink, right, in the liquid of their own form, of their own type, right? They're gonna just sink because it's more dense, but they don't. Ice doesn't. Ice floats because of that little pocket of atmosphere that gets trapped. And then you can look at pollen, so you can see different types of plants that were there. So then you can see what type of atmosphere there was. Also, the CO2. You can do so much from that. It's really, really rad just by those.
Certain of these cylinders to have 680,000 layers.
Yeah.
680,000 snow, winter, summer cycles. How could it be that just 4,000 years ago, all of this ice formed? Let's just run some numbers.
It's impossible.
This is some scenes from lovely Antarctic. Let's say we have 680,000 layers of snow ice and 4,000 years since the Great Flood. That would mean we'd need 170 winter, summer cycles every year for the last 4,000 years. I mean, wouldn't someone have noticed that? Wow. Wouldn't someone have noticed that there's been winter, summer 170 times one year? If we go to California, we find enormous stands of bristlecone pines. Some of them are over 6,000 years old, 6,800 years old. There's a famous tree in Sweden, Old Tycho, is 9,550 years old. How could these trees be there if there was an enormous flood just 4,000 years ago? You can try this yourself, everybody. I don't mean to be mean to trees, but get a sapling and put it underwater for a year. It will not survive in general, nor will its seeds. They just won't make it. So how could these trees be that old if the Earth is only 4,000 years old? Now, when we go to the Grand Canyon, which is an astonishing place, and I recommend to everybody in the world to someday visit the Grand Canyon, you find layer upon layer of ancient rocks. And if there was this enormous flood that you speak of, wouldn't there have been churning and bubbling and roiling? How would these things have settled out? Your claim that they settled out in an extraordinary short amount of time is, for me, not satisfactory. You can look at these rocks, you can look at rocks that are younger, you can go to seashores where there's sand. This is what geologists on the outside do. Study the rate at which soil is deposited at the end of rivers and deltas, and we can see that it takes a long, long time for sediments to turn to stone. Also, in this picture, you can see where one type of sediment has intruded on another type. Now, if that was uniform, wouldn't we expect it all to be even without intrusion? Furthermore, you can find places in the Grand Canyon where you see an ancient riverbed on that side going to an ancient riverbed on that side, and the Colorado River has cut through it. And by the way, if this great flood drained through the Grand Canyon, wouldn't there have been a Grand Canyon on every continent? How could we not have Grand Canyons everywhere if this water drained away in this extraordinary short amount of time, 4,000 years? Now, when you look at these layers,
the problem, it's just, their argument is just, God works in mysterious ways and he's trying to trick us. You know, that's just always what it is. Wouldn't Wouldn't the Grand Canyon have a sedimentary layer with aquatic fossils? Yeah, exactly, exactly. Well, I think that they would say, prove to me that those rocks are that old, and they don't agree with the carbon dating. I think that that's what they would say. That's the only way I think that it would make sense.
Carefully, you find these beautiful fossils. And when I say beautiful, I am inspired by them. They're remarkable because we are looking at the past. You find down low, you'll find what you might consider as rudimentary sea animals. Up above, you'll find the famous trilobites. Above that, you might find some clams, some oysters. And above that, you'll find some mammals. You never, ever find a higher animal mixed in with a lower one. You never find a lower one trying to swim its way to the higher one. If it all happened in such an extraordinary short amount of time, if this water drained away just like that, wouldn't we expect to see some turbulence? And by the way, anyone here, really, if you can find one example of that,
A single one.
example of that anywhere in the world, the scientists of the world challenge you. They would embrace you. You would be a hero. You would change the world if you could find one example of that anywhere. People have looked and looked and looked. They have not found a single one.
That's not true. There are probably straight fossils that go through the layers. No, dude, there aren't. There just aren't. No, there aren't, Ruben. It's just they just don't.
Now here's an interesting thing. These are
They reject radiometric dating. Yeah, Dr. Jace, they don't agree with that. They think they don't agree with it.
fossil skulls that people have found all around the world. It's by no means representative of all the fossil skulls that have been found, but these are all over the place. Now, if you were to look at these, I can assure you not any of them is a gorilla, right? If, as Mr. Ham and his associates claim, there was just man and then everybody else, there were just humans and all other species, where would you put modern humans among these skulls? How did all these skulls get all over the earth in these extraordinary fashion? Where would you put us? Well, I can tell you we are on there, and I encourage you, when you go home, to look it up. Now, one of the extraordinary claims associated with Mr. Ham's worldview is that this giant boat, very large wooden ship, went aground safely on a mountain in the Middle East, what we now call the Middle East. And so places like Australia are populated then by animals who somehow managed to get from the Middle East all the way to Australia in the last 4,000 years. Now, that to me is an extraordinary claim. We would expect then, somewhere between the Middle East and Australia, we would expect to find evidence of kangaroos. We would expect to find some fossils, some bones. In the last 4,000 years, somebody would have been hopping along there and died along the way, and we'd find them. And furthermore, there's a claim that there was a land bridge that allowed these animals to get.
I love it. I love it. The idea that he's like, I love the idea that Noah is building these land bridges like freaking Minecraft or something. He's just like boop 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 boop, putting all these land bridges together and just like connecting everything to everywhere that you need to go. And just imagine all the freeways of land bridges of everyone. There's a huge like, okay, I'm going to Australia, so okay, I got to go this direction. I got to take the second exit. Okay, I got to go this way. I got to take the next left, and then of course it's always the wallabies. It's always the freaking wallabies that are trying to end up in Japan, and you're like, no, you're in Australia, and you gotta Uber the wallabies over to where they really need to go, which is Australia, and you're like, God, don't do that. They freaking I accidentally got the just like, oh my God, it's so wild, man. Come on, dude. So funny. 7 lions couldn't. They didn't, you know, for sure.
Get from Asia all the way to the continent of Australia, and that land bridge has disappeared in the last 4,000 years. No navigator, no diver, no U.S. Navy submarine. No one's ever detected any evidence of this, let alone any fossils of kangaroos.
Oh my gosh.
So your expectation is not met. It doesn't seem to hold up. So let's see, if there are 4,000 years since Ken Ham's flood, and let's say, as he said many times, there are 7,000 kinds. Today, the very, very lowest estimate is that there are about 8.7 million species. But a much more reasonable estimate is it's 50 million or even 100 million when you start counting the viruses and the bacteria and all the beetles that must be extant in the tropical rainforest that we haven't found. So we'll take a number which I think is pretty reasonable, 16 million species today, okay? If these came from 7,000 kinds, let's say we have 7,000 subtracted from 15 million, that's 15,993. We have 4,000 years, we have 365 and a quarter days a year. We would expect to find 11 new species every day. So you'd go out into your yard, you wouldn't just find a different bird, a new bird, you'd find a different kind of bird, a whole new species of bird every day, a new species of fish, a new species of organisms you can't see, and so on. I mean, this would be enormous news. The last 4,000 years, people would have seen these changes among us. So the Cincinnati Enquirer, I imagine, would carry a column right next to the weather report.
New species.
Today's new species, and it would list these 11 every day. But we see no evidence of that. There's no evidence of these species. There just simply isn't enough time. Now, as you may know, I was graduated from engineering school, and I got a job at Boeing. I worked on 747s. Okay, everybody relax. I was very well supervised. Everything's fine. There's a tube in the 747 I kind of think of as my tube. But that aside.
They hate us. They reject normal evolution, but they were forced to accept the super evolution turbo things. Yeah, exactly. The surface of the Earth would be vaporized if that amount of water would have had to been vaporized. Yeah, exactly, Chase. Yeah, it's like they just pick and choose, man. It's so tiring, you know, how unserious this is, you know. And it's like I hate, like, part of me is like, this is so silly, like, aren't these fun? It reminds me honestly of like old world. This is like the end of like 2014, right? This is like the end of the 2000 to 2015, when conspiracies were like fun still. You know, people were like, oh, isn't it silly that people believe in like Bigfoot and have like Bigfoot debates and like all this stuff? But it's more nefarious now. Like, people aren't getting vaccinated because they think that humans used to live for 900 years old. So then why would I get vaccinated if it's poisoning me? And I Adam and Eve lived in that for that long without vaccines. So why should I? And you're like, wait, what? That's scary. That doesn't make any sense. So people are, this anti-intellectualism, anti-science belief is having a massive impact in our society today. And it's not just this like cutesy debate anymore. So it is quaint to like watch this debate, because it's like a time in 2014 when, the sequestration just happened. So Obama did cut science funding by 10%, as well with every other federal program. But like these anti-science beliefs that Ken Ham is talking about here directly impact all of these people. All of these people are like, how many of them do you think are like got the vaccine for COVID? How many? Probably not many. Probably a lot of people probably died during the COVID the first thing. Without if they're overweight, if they were in rural hospitals, if they got COVID, Yeah, it has a big impact on on people. Um, yeah, exactly. And the ark was made of gopher bark when 7,000 species sink that sucker. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly, man. You're a biologist, so you're expecting to educate. I play music. If people don't understand it, I don't talk to them about it, but I don't care if they know how it works. Yeah, I know. It's not, yeah, I wish it was that simple, dude. You can be a creationist and not be anti-science. I think true, Ruben. I think that does happen, but like the problem is that you don't have like other creationists stepping up and being like, "Hey guys, it's really important for you not to believe that Adam and Eve lived until they were 900 years old and to trust science and to get your vaccine." Like that doesn't happen. That doesn't you don't have a contingent of Bible, pastors going through and being like, hey, this stuff about Adam and Eve, like that's just, what we teach in Sunday school. Don't live your life about this. Take your vaccine. Science is important. They don't, right? They spend all their time in Sunday school saying they're just as good as science, if not better, right? So it is nefarious. It is nefarious, man.
Tube in the 747 I kind of think of as my tube. But that aside, I traveled the highways of Washington State quite a bit. I was a young guy. I had a motorcycle. I used to go mountain climbing in Washington State, Oregon. And you can drive along and find these enormous boulders on top of the ground. Enormous rocks, huge, sitting on top of the ground. Now, out there in regular academic pursuits, regular geology, people have discovered that there used to be a lake in what is now Montana, which we charmingly refer to as Lake Missoula. It's not there now, but the evidence for it, of course, is, if I may, overwhelming. And so an ice dam would form at Lake Missoula, and once in a while it would break. It would build up and break, and there were multiple floods in my old state of Washington State. But just before we go on, let me just say, go Seahawks. That was very gratifying for me. Anyway, you drive along the road, and there are these rocks. So if, as is asserted here at this facility, that the heavier rocks would sink to the bottom during a flood event, the big rocks, and especially their shape, instead of aerodynamic, the hydrodynamic, the water-changing shape, as water flows past. You'd expect them to sink to the bottom. But here are these enormous rocks right on the surface, and there's no shortage of them. If you go driving in Washington State or Oregon, they're readily available. So how could those be there if the Earth is just 4,000 years old? How could they be there if this one flood caused that? Another remarkable thing I'd like everybody to consider, inherent in this worldview, is that somehow Noah and his family were able to build a wooden ship that would house 14,000 individuals. There are 7,000 kinds.
Oh my God.
And there's a boy and a girl for each one of those.
It's just, guys, I mean, it has to be Noah's Ark honestly has to be the most asinine claim. I honestly, it's just, it is so, it's so wild, man.
So it's about 14,008 people. And these people were unskilled. As far as anybody knows, they had never built a wooden ship before. Furthermore, they had to get all these animals on there, and they had to feed them, and I understand that Mr. Ham has some explanations for that, which I frankly find extraordinary, but this is the premise of the bit. And we can then run a test, a scientific test. People in the early 1900s built an extraordinarily large wooden ship, the Wyoming.
Dang, dude.
It was a 6-masted schooner, the largest one ever built. It had a motor on it for winching cables and stuff.
Where'd he go?
But this boat had a great difficulty. It was not as big as the Titanic, but it was a very long ship. It would twist in the sea. It would twist this way, and this way. And in all that twisting, it leaked. It leaked like crazy. The crew could not keep the ship dry. And indeed, it eventually foundered and sank, loss of all 14 hands. So there were 14 crewmen aboard a ship built by very, very skilled shipwrights in New England. These guys were the best in the world at wooden shipbuilding. And they couldn't build a boat as big as the Ark
Chase,
is
thank you so
claimed
much,
to have
man.
been.
Chase, thank you so much. There it is. Oh, thank you, man. Thank you for resending it with the super chat. Thank you so much, dude. I did some math. If you compress the amount of radiometric decay in Earth's history into 6,000 years, the energy/heat released would be equal to 113 quadrillion Hiroshima-sized nuclear weapons. That is wild. That is absolutely wild. So, thank you, man. Thank you for that. Exactly, dude. Exactly, Chase. It is. What a joke, man. Thank you so much.
Is that reasonable? Is that possible? That the best shipbuilders in the world couldn't do what 8 unskilled people, men and their wives, were able to do. If you visit the National Zoo in Washington, D.C., it's 163 acres, and they have 400 species. By the way, this picture that you're seeing was taken by spacecraft in space, orbiting the Earth. If you told my grandfather, let alone my father, that we had that capability, they would have been amazed. That capability comes from our fundamental understanding of gravity, of material science, of physics, and life science, where you go looking. This place is often, as any zoo, is often deeply concerned and criticized for how it treats its animals. They have 400 species on 163 acres, 66 hectares. Is it reasonable that Noah and his colleagues, his family, were able to maintain 14,000 animals and themselves and feed them aboard a ship that was bigger than anyone's ever been able to build? Now, here's the thing.
It's just, it's so, the problem is that it's so easy to just be like, well, they had God on their side. That's the thing. God works in mysterious ways, and God wanted it done. So he worked through them, and they really worked hard, guys. It's just, yeah. It's like, it's so.
What we want in science as practiced out on the outside, is an ability to predict. We want to have a natural law that is so obvious and clear, so well understood, that we can make predictions about what will happen. We can predict that we can put a spacecraft in orbit and take a picture of Washington, D.C. We can predict that if we provide this much room for an elephant, it will live healthily for a certain amount of time. So I'll give you an example. In the explanation provided by traditional science of how we came to be, we find, as Mr. Ham alluded to many times in his recent remarks, we find a sequence of animals in what generally is called the fossil record. This would be to say, when we look at the layers that you would find in Kentucky, you look at them carefully, you find a sequence of animals, a succession. And as one might expect, when you're looking at old records, there's some pieces seem to be missing, a gap. So scientists got to thinking about this. There are lungfish that jump from pond to pond in Florida and end up in people's swimming pools. And there are amphibians, frogs and toads, croaking and carrying on. And so people wondered if there wasn't a fossil or an organism, an animal that had lived, that had characteristics of both. People over the years had found that in Canada, there was clearly a fossil marsh, a place that used to be a swamp, had dried out. And they found all kinds of happy swamp fossils there, ferns.
Oh, thank you, man. I don't know why it's not showing up. I can't put it up as a thing. 7.6 to the 30th joules Earth radiation divided by 6.3 to the 13th joules Hiroshima bombs equals 1.2 times to the 17th total bombs, compressed into 6,000 years. That equals 637,000 nukes every second. 637,000 every second. That's wild. That's so much, man. That's crazy. That's amazing. That's a great stat.
So on, organisms, animals, fish that were recognized. And people realized that if this, with the age of the rocks there, as computed by traditional scientists, with the age of the rocks there, this would be a reasonable place to look for an animal, a fossil of an animal that lived there. And indeed, scientists found it, Tiktaalik, this fish lizard guy. And they found several specimens. It wasn't one individual. In other words, they made a prediction that this animal would be found, and it was found. So far, Mr. Ham and his worldview, the Ken Ham creation model, does not have this capability. It cannot make predictions and show results.
Exactly.
Here's an extraordinary one that I find remarkable. There are certain fish, the top minnows, that have the remarkable ability to have sex with other fish, traditional fish sex, and they can have sex with themselves. Now, one of the old questions in life science, everybody, one of the old sort of chin strokers, is why does any organism, whether you're an ash tree, a sea jelly, a squid, a marmot, why does anybody have sex? I mean, there are more bacteria in your tummy right now than there are humans on Earth. And bacteria, they don't bother with that, man. They just like split themselves in half. They get new bacteria. Like, let's get her done. Let's go. But why does think of all the trouble a rose bush goes to make a flower, and the thorns and the bees swimming, flying around, interacting. Why does anybody bother with all that? And the answer seems to be your enemies. And your enemies are not lions and tigers and bears. Oh my, no. Your enemies are germs and parasites. That's what's going to get you. Germs and parasites. My first cousin's son died tragically from essentially the flu. This is not some story I heard about. It's my first cousin once removed. Because apparently the virus had the right genes to attack his genes. So when you have sex, you have a new set of genes. You have a new mixture. So people studied these top minnows, and they found that the ones who reproduced sexually had fewer parasites than the ones that reproduced on their own. This black spot disease. Wait, there's more. In these populations, with flooding and so on, with river ponds get isolated, then they dry up, then the river flows again. In between, some of the fish will have sex with other fish sometimes, and they'll have sex on their own, what's called asexually. And those fish, the ones that are in between, sometimes this, sometimes that, they have an intermediate number of infections. In other words, the explanation provided by evolution made a prediction. And the prediction's extraordinary and subtle, but there it is. How else would you explain it? And to Mr. Ham and his followers, I say this is something that we in science want. We want the ability to predict. And your assertion that there's some difference between the natural laws that I use to observe the world today and the natural laws that existed 4,000 years ago is extraordinary and unsettling. I travel around. I have a great many family members in Danville, Virginia, one of the U.S.'s most livable cities. It's lovely. And I was driving along, and there was a sign in front of a church, Big Bang Theory, you got to be kidding me, God. Now, everybody, why would someone at the church, a pastor, for example, put that sign up?
Embarrassing, dude.
Unless he or she didn't believe that the Big Bang was a real thing. I just want to review briefly with everybody why we accept, in the outside world, why we accept the Big Bang. Edwin Hubble Oh, sorry, there you go. You got to be kidding me, God. Edwin Hubble was sitting at Mount Wilson, which is up from Pasadena, California. On a clear day, you can look down and see where the Rose Parade goes. It's that close to civilization. But even in the early 1900s, the people who selected this site for astronomy picked an excellent site. The clouds and smog are below you. And Edwin Hubble sat there at this very big telescope night after night studying the heavens. And he found that the stars are moving apart. The stars are moving apart. And he wasn't sure why, but it was clear that the stars are moving farther and farther apart all the time. So people talked about it for a couple.
Isn't this like the red shift? There was like a red shift as it's moving away. It's kind of like the Doppler effect with the sirens, but it was the shift that happened in light, and then that was like the breakthrough that kind of made it so it's like, oh my gosh, those aren't just other suns, like those are other galaxies that really like exploded the entire size of the universe from like just like basically a galaxy into like in tons and tons of different other galaxies that we were all living in. Oh yeah, Chase, there you go. Yes, light loses energy as it moves away, shifting to the red of the light spectrum. The redshift rate is the rate that galaxies are moving away from us. Ah, cool. Thank you, man.
Decades. And then eventually another astronomer, almost a couple decades, another astronomer, Fred Hoyle, just remarked, well, it was like there was a big bang. There was an explosion. This is to say, since everything's moving apart, it's very reasonable that at one time they were all together. And there's a place from whence these things expanded. And it was a remarkable insight. But people went still questioning it for decades. Science and conventional scientists questioning it for decades.
Hi, Linda.
These two researchers wanted to listen for radio signals from space, radio astronomy. And this is, while we have visible light for our eyes, there's a whole nother bunch of waves of light that are much longer. The microwaves in your oven are about that long. The radar at the airport is about that long. Your FM radio signals about like this. AM radio signals are a kilometer. They're several soccer fields. They went out listening, and there was this hiss, this tss, all the time that wouldn't go away. And they thought, oh, doggone it, there's some loose connector. They plugged in the connector. They re-screwed it. They made it tight. They turned it this way. The hiss was still there. They heard it that way. It's still there. They thought it was pigeon droppings that had affected the reception of this horn, it's called. This thing is still there. It's in Basking Ridge, New Jersey. It's a National Historic Site. And Arno Penzias and Robert Wilson had found this cosmic background sound that was predicted by astronomers. Astronomers running the numbers, doing math, predicted that in the cosmos would be left over this echo, this energy from the Big Bang that would be detectable. And they detected it. We built the Cosmic Observatory for Background Emissions, the COBE spacecraft, and it matched exactly the astronomers' predictions. You got to respect that. It's a wonderful thing. Now,
but God put it there. That's why he put it there. Don't you see? That's just evidence of Bible and the Big Bang that doesn't exist, because God put that there to test us, to see if it's like I like seeing stuff like that, I think it's one of those things where people are numb. Like they like, even the story, they don't understand like the technological capabilities, what the scientific process is, that they actually gained, that they haven't gone through the rigors of the research process themselves. So they're just so detached from it. They hear stories like that and they're just like, oh, well, of course that's how it is. Because we have the capability now of looking back and it's like, oh, well, duh, but they don't understand how hard that is. Think about that now going forward. Okay, now you do something that's that breakthrough. Go ahead. Like you have the capability, you have tons of technology right now. Like go do something that's that remarkable now. It's like, oh well, you know, it's it's blah 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 blah. You're like, there's no respect for the scientific method of how hard it is to actually create new novel information like that. The Big Bang also says nothing about the creation of the universe or if it had the beginning at all. They frequently misuse the Big Bang to represent creation. Yeah, dude, what it really grinds my gears is that they equate the Big Bang and biological evolution too, as if it's the same thing. Like they're both natural processes that explain reality, but it has nothing to do with change of allele frequencies over time, and it just goes to show how every single scientific theory in their minds just challenges their worldview, right? And you can't do that. You're not allowed to make an independent inquiry on how the world works without their permission. It's
Along that
Yeah, and if it was the same thing, why am I an expert on the Big Bang and know nothing almost about biology? Exactly. They don't know, they don't see how they don't respect expertise, right? That's their whole thing. They don't respect it. They don't think that it exists. So, it's a joke, man.
line is some interest in the age of the Earth. Right now, it's generally agreed that the Big Bang happened 13.7 billion years ago. What we can do on Earth, these elements that we all know on the periodic table of chemicals, even ones we don't know, were created when stars explode. And I look like nobody, but I attended a lecture by Hans Bethe, who won a Nobel Prize for discovering the process by which stars create all these elements. The one that interests me especially is our good friends rubidium and strontium. Rubidium becomes strontium spontaneously. It's an interesting thing to me. A neutron becomes a proton, and it goes up the periodic table.
Wow,
When
that's
lava
cool.
comes out of the ground, molten lava, and it freezes, turns to rock, when the melt solidifies or crystallizes, it locks the rubidium and strontium in place. And so by careful assay, by being diligent, you can tell when the rock froze. You can tell how old the rubidium and strontium are, and you can get an age for the Earth. When that stuff falls on fossils, you can get a very good idea of how old the fossils are. I encourage you all to go to Nebraska, go to Ashfall State Park, and see the astonishing fossils. It looks like a Hollywood movie. There are rhinoceroses, there are three-toed horses in Nebraska. None of those animals are extant today. And they were buried catastrophically by a volcano in what is now Idaho, is now Yellowstone National Park. It's called the hot spot. People call it the super volcano. And it's a remarkable thing. Apparently, as I can tell you, as a Northwesterner around for Mount St. Helens, full disclosure, I'm on the Mount St. Helens board. When it goes off, it gives out a great deal of gas that's toxic and knocks
What's the Mount St. Helens board? Like, what is that? Why is he making that preclusion? What does that mean?
these animals out. Looking for relief, they go to a watering hole, and then when the ash comes, they were all buried. It's an extraordinary place. Now, if in the bad old days you had heart problems, they would right away cut you open. Now we use a drug based on rubidium to look at the inside of your heart without cutting you open. Now, my Kentucky friends, I want you to consider this. Right now, there is no place in the Commonwealth of Kentucky to get a degree in this kind of nuclear medicine, this kind of drugs associated with that. I hope you find that troubling. I hope you're concerned about that. You want scientifically literate students in your Commonwealth for a better tomorrow for everybody. You can't get this here. You have to go out of state.
Dude, it's such a big problem. This is the thing that really frustrates me.
World famous Dr. Greg show.
What? I did not mean to do that. Wrong button. The impact that the education have or lack thereof has a huge impact on these states, man, because it's like we're not just competing state versus state. And I think that that's how they think about it, like Kentucky versus Alabama, Kentucky versus Mississippi, like we're all competing against one another. But in reality, like we are all competing against China or India. You know what I mean? For these jobs, and like people that are not learning that evolution is real inside of these states, it's impacting all of us. Like you're not going to be able to apply next generation technologies in genetics at a biotechnology company if you don't think that that a human gene can run on a bacterial system. Do you know what I mean? Like if we have to teach you that evolution is real at the bench top, like you're not going to be able to grasp some of the next generation, next level thinking that you need to do. So it's really nefarious how these people are being held back, not just for themselves, not just for their state, but as a country, we are literally losing out on this. It is a huge, huge problem.
Now, as far as the distance to stars, understand this is very well understood. It's February. We look at a star in February, we measure an angle to it, we wait 6 months, we look at that same star again, and we measure that angle. It's the same way carpenters built this building. It's the same way surveyors surveyed the land that we're standing on. And so by measuring the distance to a star, you can figure out how far away it is, that star, and then the stars beyond it and stars beyond that. There are billions of stars, more than 6,000 light years from here. A light year is a unit of distance, not a unit of time. There are billions of stars. Mr. Ham, how could there be billions of stars?
Because space-time is the same thing, dude. Get with the program, guys. Space-time is one thing. It's not space. It's not time. It's space-time. That's what Einstein showed us. Boom. Boom.
More distant than 6,000 years if the world's only 6,000 years old. It's an extraordinary claim. There's another astronomer, Adolf Kittel, who remarked first about the reasonable man. Is it reasonable that we have ice
Thank you,
older
Chase.
by a factor of 100 than you claim the Earth is? We have trees that have more tree rings than the Earth is old. That we have rocks with rubidium and strontium and uranium and potassium argon dating that are far, far, far older than you claim the Earth is. Could anybody have built an ark that would sustain better than any ark anybody was able to build on the Earth? So if you're asking me,
Thank you, Chase.
and I got the impression you were, is Ken Ham's creation model viable? I say no. Absolutely not. Now, one last thing.
What? And it's like Ken Ham's.
I say no.
That's like another thing. Is it like if it's, bro? It shouldn't just be. It should be so self-evident from the evidence. Like it's not Ken Ham's creation, right? Like we as scientists observe nature, right? As a creationist, you're observing God. And so it's God's model, right? So just show us God's model. Right? That's what's so frustrating. It's like there can't be more than one creation model if it's all from one thing, if that makes sense. Do you know what I mean? Like I don't get how the framing is so wild here. Not because of Bill Nye, but I'm just saying in general, it's just so nefarious and how wrong this idea is where yeah, everyone can all think of their own thing. But God is the truth. What do you mean? It doesn't make any sense, dude.
Absolutely not. Now, one last thing. You may not know that in the U.S. Constitution, from the Founding Fathers, is the sentence to promote the progress of science and useful arts.
Yeah, it's for patents. Patents. Like there was that's one of the reasons why I think it's honestly really cool how how science actually gets a freaking call out, dude. Like how it's freaking sweet. I think it actually is awesome. Congress shall have the power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises to pay the debts and provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States, but all duties, imposts, and excises shall be uniform throughout the United States to blank, to promote the progress of science and useful arts by securing for limited times to authors, inventors, the exclusive rights of their respective writings and discoveries. It's freaking rad. They literally, I genuinely do think that that is so cool. You know, that we, like, as a country, have that in our constitution. I think that it genuinely is rad, man. We don't talk about that enough. It's in the foundation of our country to explore, to better understand the world, to synthesize new ideas together, to contribute to mankind by elevating research. Like that is who we are as Americans in our Constitution. It's beautiful, man. I love that he's talking about this.
Kentucky voters who might be watching online in places like Texas, Tennessee, Oklahoma, Kansas.
Just random states. He's just talking about random states, guys. There's no through line here. He's just randomly talking about some random states. There's nothing, he's just randomly thinking about states.
Please, you don't want to raise a generation of science students who don't understand how we know our place in the cosmos, our place in space, who don't understand natural law. We need to innovate to keep the United States where it is in the world. Thank you very much.
Oh, that's so cute. This is cute. Remember that? Remember those times? Remember those times when we weren't there? And then it was like, we can't go down that. He's like, we can't go down that path. And all those people in 2 years are going to be like, we're going down that fucking path. We're going with Trump, baby. Like, going with Trump. Like, no. Like, it's like Inception. We're like through the looking glass. Like, don't do it. Don't vote for Trump. Don't vote for Trump. They didn't listen. They didn't listen to Bill. They didn't listen to him. They weren't paying attention. They weren't. The presentation was too long. It didn't work. It didn't work. Oh my God. Oh man. Okay. All right. We're gonna put a pause in that. We're gonna come back to this. We were made halfway, so we went through the monologues here, and now we're gonna go into the back and forth. Are they gonna have a back and forth? We'll have to see. We'll have to see, ladies and gentlemen.